Have you ever tried to do something really special that just falls flat on its face? Like you come home with flowers for your spouse, you're like, ta-da! She's like, oh, thanks. Can you just find a vase and stick them over there? And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, totally hasn't happened to me either. But I'll tell you what, in the IT world, it has happened. You're doing some awesome thing, like migrating all the old files from the legacy server up to the cloud in SharePoint or something like that. And you're like, this is gonna be great. And then all of a sudden you have people lining up outside your office with pitchforks. Why did that happen? Change management. But I've got one word that can solve it for you. It's called ADKAR. I know, it's a funny word, but you can think of ADKAR as just a quick little acrostic to remember a checklist that you can walk through to become an IT hero every single time you do a change. Maybe it won't be that great, but it'll be way better than it is of just surprise, new IT change in the environment. First things first, you want to make sure people are aware. That is, you want to explain why that change is needed. I know it sounds odd, but most people despise change. They're like, I just want to come in, I want to put my file in that folder and it's good. We have to be like, no. Actually, there's a big reason we need to make this change. Those servers are end of life. We need to move to the cloud environment. Like you explain why that change is needed. And it leads right into the desire. This is where you get the team on your side, meaning you now get the buy-in of everybody that's going to be impacted by that change. And there's two ways that you can do this. One, there's many ways, but I'd say two primary ways. One, you can explain what could happen if you don't make the change. Old server, they don't patch this thing anymore. We could get hacked, we could lose everything, ransomware, frightening. That works, and people will be like, okay, we gotta do this. But I think it's even better if you can tell them how they will benefit from this change. That's the desire for it, right? Nobody wants to be hacked, but it's kind of like I hear that all the time. But if you're like, imagine you're sitting at the coffee shop. You used to have to use a VPN. It's so slow. Your cup of coffee's cold by the time the file's open. Now it's gonna be like, I can open that phone and bam, my file's right there. It's on my iPad, it's on my laptop, it's all secure, it's gonna be amazing. Are you on board? Yeah, we're all on board. Okay, so let me tell you how. That's the next piece. This is the biggest challenge that I've seen, is oftentimes the change is so complex for IT to handle, how it affects the users becomes the afterthought. It's been a 20-hour weekend, you've been migrating files, setting permissions, and you're like, I gotta tell people, I'll just send a quick email. Click this link, and that's how you get your files in the future, right? You come in the morning, they've all got pitchforks, right? Because all the old files are missing. They weren't prepared. Now we have the knowledge of like, okay guys, this change is gonna be in a couple weeks. You're going to access it using blah, blah, blah method. Click this link, go to this URL, there's a new folder structure. Now, it may sound like, that'll be enough, but YouTube and this video way of training actually creates a false sense of assurance because people think, well, now that I know, I'm good, right? You ever watch a YouTube video, then try to do it later, right? Like it's like, here's how you empty your water heater. And you're like, I get that. You feel good until you go try to empty your water heater. You're like, and you're like scrolling by, how did he do that? Like, you have to test it, and that's the ability. Sometimes this may take some creativity because the SharePoint site might not be there yet. So you might create a test SharePoint site and be like, it'll be like this, click this link. And how do you test them? Well, maybe drag a file and name it after yourself so they know how to rename the file. They know how to move it up there. You can see that Beth is now sitting in there with the Beth.xls spreadsheet or something like that. Or maybe it's just like, hey, take a screen snap and send it to me. Or, hey, can you email me when you see this screen so that I know that you got there and we're good, right? Now, I know you think, well, okay, they've got it now, right? Almost, but just before you go live, reinforce. It's so hard to do because sometimes it comes natural to us as we're making these changes. We're like, you just go there, right? I even explained it. I trained you. You verified that you were there, but again, how often? Every Sunday, my wife does the whole schedule for the week, and Monday I'm gonna be like, now what are we doing today? And she's like, I told you it's Sunday. This is like, it's just, there's so much out there, you gotta be solid. So just before the change go live, reinforce that. Hey guys, this weekend we're moving to SharePoint. As a reminder, you guys did this before, click this link, it's still active. Make sure that that still arrives for you, because come Monday when you sit down, that's where all your files are gonna be. Now, obviously I chose SharePoint as the example, but you can apply this to just about any IT change that you run into. ADKAR, a weird word I should say, powerful change management. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.